I feel like we are becoming slowly more and more aware of infertility within society. There are so many women out there doing an amazing job of raising awareness. But I often wonder, are men feeling as supported as we are? And I think about what my husband was going through while we were undergoing IVF, and there wasn't really anyone that he could talk to. I think men just handle things differently. But I have found one man who is doing an incredible job of speaking openly and to help men find a voice in this space too. This is an episode that you're going to want to send to your partner or to listen along to with them. Welcome to your journey to fertility. This is the podcast that blends both science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Here each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so you can stop stressing that you'll never have a baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to bring you today's guest, and I was so impressed when I came across Corey on social media, and not just because he is tall, dark and handsome, which he absolutely is, but because he had written a book about infertility from his perspective and his experiences with IVF. He speaks so openly about male factor infertility and all that he and his wife went through when they were struggling to have their family. Men don't talk about these things, so I found it really confronting in a good way when I came across his book and everything that he is trying to get out into the world. And when I think about what my husband and I went through on our own journey, I had my girlfriends to speak to, but throughout this process, I do wonder how my husband supported himself, because he was supporting me and he was also struggling to support himself. And this is something that Corey speaks really openly about today and how much he struggled with that. So Corey Butchman is a former NFL player turned men's health advocate. He is the author of the IVF Playbook for Men, and through his book, his speaking engagements and non-profit work, Corey helps men navigate infertility, fatherhood, and emotional resilience. He's empowering them to show up fully for their partners, families, and futures. So I hope you enjoy this episode and enjoy having a male voice on the podcast, which is something we don't often do around here. So let's get into it. Here's Corey. Corey, thank you for being here today. I think you may be the second man that I have spoken to on the podcast over the last year and a half or so. So it's a real honor to have you here. And I would love to start today by just learning a little bit about you and your journey and what brings us here together today.
Well, once again, thank you for having me on this show. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. Any chance I get, I try to take advantage of it just to get the knowledge out there from the male perspective, right? My journey was a 3-year journey with my wife, trying to have a child. And the reason why I started this process with the Playbook for Men, the book and things of that nature, is because there weren't many resources for men out there. As you go through this journey, you're trying to find something that you can relate to. There are a ton of stuff from my wife, which is needed. And let me be clear, women do the bulk of this journey. They do a lot of it. But the book and then the other thing that I have going on is like, how do you support someone while you're struggling also? So that's kind of the genesis of why I started this, trying to be the best partner I could be to someone who's doing a lot. They're taking shots, they're going to appointments, they're getting blood drawn. But at the same time, I'm hurt inside also. Just trying to figure out how to navigate that space. And then also knowing that it's a male factor infertility and having that guilt that the reason why I'm even here because of me. And let me make me clear, my wife never once said that to me. She never once accused me to point a finger. But, you kind of internalize things that the reality is, as a football analogy, you're the weakest link on the team. Once again, my wife never made me feel that way, but that's kind of things that I internalized of it being male factor. Also just watching her go through so much and supporting her, but also trying to deal with my own struggles at the same time.
It is so hard, isn't it? Because you can have the best treatment in the whole world and everything can be, looking great and from testing perspective. And then it can be all because of the male factor. But it still means that the female has to go through everything. And that is a really, really hard thing, I imagine. I had a bit of a combination of both male and female fertility issues. But gosh, to imagine watching my husband go through something like that and knowing it was because what I was bringing to the table wasn't, quite up to par. It's yeah, it's really hard perspective, isn't it? And you speak about your wife with such compassion, and that is so wonderful to hear. So, what was it about this journey that made you want to be so outspoken? And I, as I would have mentioned in the introduction with this podcast, you are a former professional athlete, and I suspect that in the football world, fertility issues were not spoken about very often. Am I right?
No, we definitely didn't talk about male infertility inside the locker room or at the bar or on the sideline or at halftime or any point in time. No, it's the complete opposite, I think, especially in that world. As a male, everything has to be perfect on your end. So it's definitely not going to be spoke about. But also, it gave me the confidence to come out and be an advocate for this because obviously I have the confidence to play a professional sport. So why can't I go out and talk about this? Why not? It's like gave me the confidence by being able to say, I'm just considered a tough guy, right? Box check. So I should be able to speak about this with no problem. So I haven't had any problem speaking about it. But yeah, this journey, once again, was male factor. And just like watching my wife go through those things was definitely a difficult time for me. But at the same time, when I say show it, you can show it definitely. But as you see your wife giving shots and things of that nature, it's like, well, how do I feel bad for myself when look at her right now? So it's trying to balance that out. And my wife was a great partner to talk to. Anytime I wanted to talk, but she's a human being, right? And I saw those situations where she was just tired or, things. I'm like, well, I can't talk to her about this. And like you said before, no one's talking about this in the locker room. No one's talking about it at a football game or at the golf course. Everything's perfect in our world, right? So it was like not finding that space outside of my wife to be able to have a conversation or talk about.
Hmm. Did you feel that you were able to be outspoken about what you're going through during your years of going through treatments, or was it only after that you felt able to speak about it?
Yeah, it was definitely after because I had to process so much. And as I was going through the journey, it would have been hard for me to like put this all on paper and explain it because it was ebb and flow moments. And there was so many, like, went through 3.5 years of this. So in those 3.5 years, you're still trying to figure things out. So at the same time, there's no way I could have come out and did something like this till after I processed our entire journey. And then after I processed, I started writing. And then it became something where I am now, where I can reflect and express how I felt during those moments and kind of share stories openly with not carrying emotion with it. I think when we're going through a lot of emotion involved, but once it was over, the emotion had subsided a little bit, and I was able to like actually logistically figure out how this story went, and was able to get it out.
Hmm. And what was the reaction that you got when you first, I mean, I imagine you opened up, first of all, to say family and friends, and then became a little bit more public about it. What was the reaction that you got?
And this is not to do a shameless plug of the book, but this is what I talked about in the book. While you're going through it, you can't talk to friends and family about it. And the reason why is because IVF is such a niche thing. No one knows anything about it. Heck, I know anything about it until I went through it. So when you try to explain to people about what you're going through, they're going to give you information based on what they know. So I had some friends tell me, well, just spin around and do 3 flips and it'll happen for you. Or just eat 3 eggs. And you're like, okay, I've already tried that. No, it's a medical thing. So they call it to you to recoil a little bit because you get those ideas or those suggestions that are so far-fetched in what you're going through. And all it does is just drain you because now you're having to over-explain. You know what? Like, I'm not talking about this anymore because I'm having to over-explain things and they still don't get it. Heck, I still didn't get it. So imagine trying to explain to people. So I would just shut the conversation down by saying it's medical and kind of leave it at that. And I talked to men about speaking about this on your own terms. when you don't want to talk about it, let people know, hey, not right now. Because it could become draining because every day someone's calling you, how's it going? How's it going? How's it going? And as you're eggshells anyway. I remember one time after one of our transfers, we were waiting 14 days to see had the transfer took place, and the phone was ringing, family calling. You heard anything yet? You heard anything yet? And you're waiting on the nurse to call, but your phone is ringing. So those are the things that I talk about of why you go through this process. You feel isolated because there's so many things from the outside can drain you because you're already drained from the process, but then external things can drain you also.
That's it. And you have to be so careful about who you share things with because you're right. It takes all of your energy just to show up and to get through your day, let alone then having to bear the burden of someone else wanting to know your news. And it is so much to go through, isn't it? My gosh.
Yes, it is.
You mentioned before about this idea of grieving for yourself, but also having to support your wife at the same time.
Yes.
How do you even do something like that?
Well, we had a total of 4 unsuccessful transfers. And, when it comes to transfers, they're not considered miscarriages, but in your mind, they're miscarriages because they were just hope that didn't happen. These were, embryos, but in your mind, they're my babies, right? So we had 4 transfers that were unsuccessful. So each one was kind of different. The very, very first one we had, it was a new process for us. We knew the percentages. So when it didn't happen, it was hurtful, of course, but we're like, okay, no, we have 2 more left. We're good. We can figure this out. So the first one, HCC readings came back not too good, but not great, but not bad. But then after the next test, they ended up going down to 3 or 4. And then after a while, it wasn't a viable pregnancy. So we're like, okay, all right, regroup, our game face on, do another transfer. Do the second transfer after 14 days, we do the HCC testing, what the levels were, and they were at 0. It hadn't even done nothing. So that was heartbreaking because the first one had a little bit of success. And the second one is like, all right, nothing, so it was another, I think had it been similar to the first one, you kind of can like draw off the first experience, but for it to be totally different than the first one, it was like, oh, wow, what is this? And nothing about my wife on paper said anything about this would be an issue. Everything came back great. All the eggs came back great. Quality eggs were great. All the things. So when we got a 0 reading on our second, it was like, okay, what's going on here? So now you get the strength to gear up for a third one, and you're trying to process. Okay, how do I do this? Like, okay, do we come in happy, sad? You're just trying to figure things out. And then we do the third one, and the first 14 days, it came back not high, but pretty good numbers. It was viable at the time, our first test. So we're like, okay, great. Oh, let's go. And then we get the call back 2 days later, and the numbers drop. So that's 3 unsuccessful transfers that we had. It was like, whoa, what is going on here? Now, mind you, during each one, a different emotional experience. And once again, I'm not talking to anyone outside of my wife about this because, once again, no one understands this unless you're going through it. The few times I've tried to talk about it, it was just so heartbreaking. It was like, okay, I'm going to hold all this in. I was able to communicate with my wife because we're best friends. But like I said before, she's going through it too. So there were days I would come home, I would see the look on her face. She was open to talk, but you could feel it. You could feel the vibe, like, not right now. So what do you do? So I started to do external things like ride my bike. That was great. Because, when I rode my bike, I put on my music in my helmet. And for 25 minutes, I wasn't a dad. I wasn't a guy trying to go through IVF. I was just a bike rider. So those things helped out a lot. The ironic part about my job, I'm the vice president of an organization called Fathers and Families. And we help dads connect with their kids. We help dads support their kids. So even when I go to work, I can't escape what I'm going through because I'm in a room full of dads and I'm not one. But you just draw on like your life experiences, you draw on your faith, you do all those things. You just pull out everything out of the woodworks to put one foot in front of the other. And that's what I decided to do. Just every day, put one foot in front of the other and get through it.
Mm. Thank you for sharing all of that so openly, Corey. One of the things that I find is most of the work that I do is directly with women, and
Yeah.
I struggle with this myself. You grow up thinking that effort equals reward. And you go
Yes.
through your life, you're like, I do well at school, I'm going to do well at university, I'm going to get the job. And you work hard and you get all these things and you see that it works. And
Yes. Yes.
then it does, right? And then it comes to infertility. And
Yes.
nothing could be further from the truth. That doesn't work at all. It's almost like the harder you work, the less you get out of it. It's endlessly frustrating. But I imagine that for men who are used to marching to that same beat of like, well, I'm a high achiever, this is what I go for. And goodness me, getting to the status of being a professional athlete, I mean, that isn't something that a lot of people get to. So you are used to this idea of achieving. So why is it so hard? And then what do men really struggle with when it comes to this? Well, it doesn't matter how hard I try. It isn't anything that
Yeah.
I can work towards. How do you deal with that?
That's an amazing question because, as you know, like the ultimate, you put the work in and you get the reward, right? You put the work in of training. And that was probably the biggest thing I struggled with because if I had a bad game or couldn't figure out how to do something football, you just go out there, you do repetition until you figure it out. It's always problem is a solution. You work hard, you solution. This right here, your hands were tied behind your back. But what it taught me was to use a muscle I didn't know existed in my body. I've used other muscles when it came to sports and running my businesses, but this has taught me another level of another muscle I didn't know I had to use. And then once you start to get into the process, you start leaning on that and you just start to like use your experience as a way to guide you through this experience. I drew on past failures. I drew on past disappointments. Even though this was totally different, you kind of still use those things as guiding lights. And I think the ultimate decision my wife and I made was, regardless if we have a child or not, we have to figure out how our life can still be great. And that was one of the things that we wanted to make sure we thought, oh, it's not being pessimistic. It's more saying realistic. Like if this doesn't happen for us, we have to have the best life possible. So that was kind of one of the things that helped guide us through the process to say, okay, we're going to put our best foot forward. But if it's not meant to be, we're going to move on and have great lives. Flip side of that is like once again, it's not a pessimistic thought. It's just a realistic thought that if it doesn't happen, let's figure this out. So that's kind of where we're at, especially by the third failed transfer. The first one or two, you're like, we can do this, we can do this. But then reality sets in that it may not be possible. So living with that is one of the things that we really focused on. But also, we also focused on not letting this control our lives as we go through the process, which is horribly impossible to do. As soon as you walk outside, you see like 15 strollers. You drive down the street, you see 9 billboards for Pampers. So it's almost impossible to escape. But somehow I just have to like figure out like how can I not let this control my life as we go through this process.
Mm. It's the hardest conversations that you never thought you would have to have. Like, what is our life going to look like if this doesn't happen? And
Yeah.
they're not the things that you talk about before you get married, are they?
Oh,
Uh,
no.
and maybe we should, but it is so confronting, isn't it? My goodness.
Yeah.
Why do you think that so few men talk about infertility and IVF, whether it's a male or a female factor that is creating the issues? Why is it so hard for men to talk about?
I think that we gotta have to redefine masculinity. It has nothing to do with how strong you are, how tough you are. It has something to do with being emotional, available, not just for yourself, but for your partner and people around you. And I think that, and there's more and more awareness for this now. It's amazing how more and more men are looking at their mental health and becoming emotional aware. So it just redefining masculinity. I think that we often grow up, it's funny because I told my wife that when I was playing football before, our motto was, I would down this football field. Just kind of, it's the way you thought. But then now you got football players saying, I'm going to retire in 3 years or 4 years. I have other things I want to do in my life, or this is too tough for my body. Let me move on to something else. So I think as men evolve slowly but surely to evolve out of masculinity, doesn't have to be how tough you are. That's one of the things I think that once we kind of understand that you don't have to be the tough guy or the strong guy all the time, and being vulnerable, not just to your wife, but your friends. And that's okay to be that way. I think it'll be an easier conversation. The second thing is, I don't think there's much information out there about it. Once again, as me as a male, who would I talk to about this? Another reason why I wrote the book is because I met a guy by chance in Mexico that was going through the same process. And you would have thought we were like kindred spirits. I mean, the connection we made, oh my God, we talked for hours, and it felt so good to have that conversation because you feel like you're on an island as a male. I mean, I brought up a time that, one of my good friends was having a kid, and I was actually jealous. Now, who am I going to tell that to? I'm not going to tell it to my friend, and I can't express it to the world because it's like, I can be jealous of somebody else is great news, but that's how you feel. So when the guy said the same thing, I'm like, yes, it isn't just me. I'm not a bad guy. So that relatability is what we need. And once again, I think that we don't talk about it because we know as you go through it, unless you're going through it too, you're not going to be able to relate to what's going on. So that's why I want to open up this avenue for men to connect through the website or whatever, so they can have that reassurance that they're not bad people. They don't have bad thoughts. It's just being a human being, and those thoughts are okay. Like I said before, there were times where I even thought about this, and this was interesting. I thought about like, maybe I should just divorce my wife so she can have a family on her own. You think about those things, right? But then when you hear about another guy say the same exact thing, you're like, oh, okay, it isn't just me. So that's why I want to open up this avenue to give men the access to have those discussions and feel free about it. And that's why I kind of put I think that a lot of men love football or sports. So I think if I put my platform being a former athlete that's doing this, it gives other men the access to say, okay, if he can talk about it, I can talk about it too. So it's kind of what I'm doing right now.
I feel really naive saying this, but like women are, this is a generalization, but we're better at talking about things than men generally.
Yes.
And it was not too difficult for me to find women to talk to about IVF when I was going through it. It wasn't everyone, but it was, but I think about, who did my husband speak to? I don't think he had anyone. And he would come home and, say these things like, one of his best mates who'd have 6 beers on the weekend and they fell pregnant at the drop of a hat. And here he is like giving up alcohol and doing everything perfectly. And it's so hard. And I just think, how would I have felt if I had no one to speak to about these things on this journey? So that's such an important point that you bring up. So I would love to ask you more about your book and what sort of motivated you to write it. And can you tell us, what is it all about?
Thank you for that. As I talk to you through the podcast, I didn't want to seem like I'm plugging the book. That's not my ideal at all. My ideal is to express the stories. And I'm glad you asked that question. I wanted to make sure everything I do are organic and authentic, right? And what I want to make sure on these podcasts is to talk about the issue of male factor, is talk about the male side of it. Once again, I didn't write it till after, we went through the entire process because it took me time to process what I had just went through. It was actually therapy for me to go back and relive some of those moments. And then some of the things I forgot about, as I'm writing, I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. And oh, I forgot about that. So it's just one of those things where helping me navigate through the space of, there's somebody out there just like you. It talks about just those the thoughts that I had going through the process, some of the things I did for therapy, understanding some of the science behind what I was going through from a male factor. So in the book, we had reference doctors in there that explains certain aspects of infertility or the fertility process. Because, going through all the appointments, the doctor's talking, but, I see her talking over my head. I had no idea. I asthmatic. I'm like, what is that? I mean, those things in the kitty sense to me. And you try to like run home and Google it real quick. And that's another thing why I wrote the book is, I think that the internet is a great resource, but just be careful of what you look up, because what you'll do is if you're looking for something, you'll find it. I'm trying to find like, okay, what are the chances for, just anything I want to look up that give me that feeling of hope. I will go find it. And oftentimes it's false hope because you're trying to figure out how can I make myself feel better? Let me Google something, let me feel better. And that can be a dangerous game sometimes because there's a lot of false hope there, a lot of information on the internet that just not vetted. So that's one of the things, once again, going back to why I wrote the book, because I wanted to make sure I talk to someone, or they can talk to someone who's actually been through the process, that has doctors in the book that are citing the sources of what they're talking about, and, just giving them real information and not false hope. That's kind of what I want for me to get out of the book.
Yeah. And I will make sure we leave links to your book in the show notes as well, because again, it is an amazing resource. And I don't think I can recall any other books around fertility that have been written by men. It's a wonderful thing that you've put out into the world, Corey. So thank you.
Thank
I
you.
want to ask you what advice you would give to other men who are in the thick of it, or maybe at the start of their own journey. What do you wish you could go back and tell yourself that you'd like other men to know now?
For one, you're not the only one going through this. That's probably one of the biggest one. There are other men out there, and it's okay to feel. Once again, there were certain feelings that I had, and I felt like an awful human being. Like I said before, I thought about, like, maybe if I just leave my wife and give her a chance to have time with somebody else. Those thoughts in your head, like, then once again, you internalize things. And then also, as you're going through the process, going to the doctor for yourself, or the male factor, no one's thinking about you but you. When I went and did the semen analysis, things like that, I thought that everyone in there knew exactly why I was going in there, and everyone was staring at me, and everyone was judging me, and it's not the case. They didn't even know my name, right? But you think that I'm going in here, everyone's looking at me, and everyone's pointing, everyone's giggling. No, everyone's professional, because they've seen you're like number 5,000 of the day they've seen. So it's nothing new they haven't seen before. So it's just you, and just don't internalize anything. And I would say that, try your best to reach out and find resources of IVF men. Try your best to find something like that to talk to. That's the best bet. And then talk to people on your terms. Make sure that you control the conversations around it, and be careful who you share with, because people can have real good intentions, but oftentimes those intentions it's the timing sometimes. Like I said before, people were calling us and wait for a nurse to call us. Keep things on your terms, be intentional about your conversations, and then seek outside sources of someone who's going through IVF yourself. That would be my biggest word of advice.
Amazing. Thank you. I love that you mentioned the going to the waiting room of the fertility clinic. And it's just, we joke about it that men put so much on this like one moment, and women have to do so much more. So I appreciate that you brought that up, because it's not a big deal. It's just not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're internalized. You think, like I said, the spotlight's on you. I thought when I walked in there, they're like, and coming up next, Corey Parchman, he has male factor fertility. And then it was like looking at me. And then, you go into the room to, whatever. And then like you come out, you're like, everyone just staring. No one's staring.
It's hilarious. Thank
Just
you.
don't internalize every single thing. It's okay.
Good advice. Corey, if people would like to reach out to you, and if men would like to connect with you, where's the best place for them to do that?
Oh, thank you. Well, anything that says IVF Playbook for Men, it's .com. Instagram is IVF Playbook for Men. The website, once again, is that. All social media is IVF Playbook for Men. So anything, just Google that, and you will find everything you need to know. You can go to my website, and it kind of is a forum. I have blogs on there, different articles that I wrote, other people wrote about the experience. So you can get some relatability there. Also, the book, it's an audio book also. And also the IVF for Men podcast also. So once you Google IVF Playbook for Men, I just said don't Google, but yeah, Google this though. Google this.
We'll find.
If you Google anything IVF Playbook for Men, you'll be able to find the podcast, the book, blogs, and things of that nature. It's an open market for men to be able to express themselves.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for all that you do, and for being here today, Corey. I really appreciate it. And I will leave links to all of those in the show notes as well, just if people would like to click through straight away. So we really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you so much for being here. And as I said at the start of this episode, I think this might be something that you could send to the man in your life, or any man in your life that you know is struggling through infertility, or they might just need a little bit of support along the way. As I mentioned, I will place a link to all of Corey's Instagram, his book, and where you can find that down in the show notes. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to him directly. He's so friendly and so open with everything that he shares. So if you got a lot out of this episode, if you found it helpful, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a quick written review. So no matter where you get your podcasts, whether it is iTunes or Spotify or YouTube, leaving that quick review really shows that this is something that is helpful for people and it helps others to get the support that they might need as well. So I can't wait to have you back for next week's episode. So until then, I am sending you all of my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.